Joe Rosen asks, is there an early or modern film you would have loved to have worked on? I am drawn towards the high detail spaceships. Among the greatest spaceships ever designed, at the top of this list is always the Millennium Falcon. Joe Johnston's amazing hamburger, just. But below the Millennium Falcon, I love the E.T. mothership and the Close Encounters mothership. Those two spaceships, they are so beautiful. I've seen both in person several times. They are spectacular, spectacular constructions. And when I look up really close, I feel a pull, I feel a draw. I want to be in that room in the 80s working on those pieces. I think the model maker from those early days that I know the most is Bill George, who went on to become an amazing effects director at ILM. Still a wonderful model maker. And when I crack open like an old Cinefex and look at pictures of the Blade Runner crew and see Bill in his early 20s working on those models, it's like I just want to go to there. I want to be in the room working on the city streets of Blade Runner, the mothership from E.T. It's all Star Wars films. I don't want to work on any early Star Trek films for some reason. The Star Trek aesthetic, it just doesn't move me quite like the Star Wars aesthetic does. And so, yeah, you're asking me for my like fantasy camp list of movies I would want to work on. It's the ones that move me aesthetically. Yeah, Empire, right? It's Empire. That's the one I would want to work on. It's a great question.
What about modern films?
Modern films that I wanted to work on.
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yes, sorry. Lord Norm is reminding me about Lord of the Rings. Yeah. 100%. I totally would have wanted to work on Lord of the Rings. And there was almost a trajectory. When I first got to Industrial Light and Magic in the spring of 1998, there was above one of the phones in the main model shop a small piece of paper that said, if you're interested in moving to New Zealand to work with Weta Workshop, they're spooling up on Lord of the Rings. And I remembered investigating it. How do I say this? I knew that I was going to have children when I was first working at ILM. My kids were born. Wait, no, not quite. Shortly after I was working at ILM, I had kids. My boys were born in 99. I'd started at ILM in spring of 98. And so by the time I was thinking seriously about New Zealand, which I loved the idea of, Weta Workshop, which I loved the idea of, I had already seen Meet the Feebles and Brain Dead. I was a big fan of Peter Jackson's because of all of the reasons. And I was thinking, oh, Lord of the Rings sounds totally amazing. But the logistics of moving me and my new family from San Francisco to New Zealand was too onerous for me to consider at that moment in time. But yeah, that could have been a whole nother trajectory because I seriously considered it for a couple of weeks. And since then, Norm and Joey and I love to talk about the fact that like we have all watched, all three of us, all of the extended edition behind the scenes Lord of the Rings footage and regular edition behind the scenes Lord of the Rings footage. We watch all of that stuff at least twice each. And so when we go to Weta, that's part of our institutional knowledge. What's hilarious to us is whenever we talk about it, no one at Weta has ever watched any of that stuff, especially Richard Taylor. So he doesn't remember saying half the things we remember from those behind the scenes stuff. But there is a way in which it sort of also feels like having watched all that stuff so much and been so in love with it, and then going to Weta and being welcomed into that family and being held by the love that is Weta Workshop. It sort of feels like we did kind of work on Lord of the Rings. Not quite, but like a little bit of a simulacrum of to know how loving that family is. And that family is so abiding. I was recently at a con with Elijah Wood, who is still just like, I've met him a couple of times. He's one of the nicest celebrities I have ever spent time with. And like, that's his family, man. You can really feel that sense of love from that production, and it's abiding and really inspiring. Oh, Ingalls says, Ingels, I-N-G-E-L-S, Ingalls. I'm a big Blade Runner fan, and I know this question is a tough nut, but in which sci-fi future that we've seen do you think we will end up? Every Black Mirror episode? There was a tweet recently in which someone said Black Mirror can be summed up as one British dude wondering if his mom was a robot. It's a reason, actually, that I find it difficult to watch Black Mirror. I can watch like one. If I'm going to watch 2 episodes, I need like 2 weeks between them. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I want Star Trek future. I want Star Trek. I want that utopia. Everyone should have food. Everyone should have shelter. That's the world Star Trek lives in. I don't care if they work. Everyone should have food and everyone should have shelter. We have enough of both for everyone. The only reason everyone doesn't have food and shelter is because it's profitable for some people not to have food and shelter. That's terrible to me. I want them all to have food and shelter. Oh, yeah, this is one I want to answer. Hold on, let me just see. Yeah, so SRMIII90 for me says, several months ago, you were wearing a Cliff Booth shirt and said that you didn't normally dress as villains. I was curious why you felt Cliff Booth was a villain in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I view him as a kind of anti-hero or villain. I don't bandy around the term myself, anti-hero enough to have an opinion on anti-hero versus villain, but I will talk about why I think Cliff is villainous. I think Once Upon a Time in the Hollywood, that it is partly a meditation on cool. It is a meditation on the coolness of the movie star versus the coolness of the movie star played by Leo DiCaprio and the coolness of his stuntman played by Brad Pitt, Cliff Booth. And the movie has an opinion that Cliff Booth is 10 times as cool as Leo DiCaprio's character. The movie makes that really clear, that it thinks of Cliff as authentic cool and Leo DiCaprio's character as unauthentic cool, a little more messed up in the head. But I think it also has this idea about cool being slightly psychopathic or sociopathic. We're given some previous history about Cliff. He is supposed to have killed his ex-wife or his dead wife. He is supposed to have offed her with a spear gun. And we get to witness what looks like the moment just before he shoots her. And we also see the expression. We hear her. She's not a sympathetic character, not written as a sympathetic character. And we see him clearly contemplating murdering her. And they don't show the murder. But I feel like in that moment, it makes it clear that Cliff's cool stems from something like a lack of empathy or something approaching sociopathy. And when I combine that, I know that like he's tripping balls at the end of the movie when the Manson people come and he destroys them. But the 2 shots of one, him contemplating killing his wife, and then the second one of him taking that young woman from the Manson family and just beating the living crap out of her, those 2 shots are they don't fill me with anything approaching any warmth about that character. That might make him an anti-hero. To me, it makes him feel a lot more like a villain. Thank you for watching that video. Are you as sick of the tosses to membership as I am? Good, because here's a brand new one that I recorded today, and it's nice and short. There are 3 tiers to Tested membership, and they all offer awesome stuff. Find out about it by clicking the join link below. We'll see you there.